Teresa, Seeley, thanks for coming down. We had our first. I've had 2 successful events at Eat Local New York in the last 6 years, and the first one was at the cider mill. So what I learned from that was, because I remember waking up and reading on Syracuse.com, when they reported it. I don't know if it was right after it happened, but when they reported, you guys had that employee that had stolen a bunch of money, right? And so when I read that, I was like, oh, I should try and do something, to help them out. And so we were doing like monthly sort of dinners at the time, and I had the meetup group. We had started like a dining club, and every time that we did a dinner, it was me and then like 15 to 20 70 to 80-year-old divorcees or widows that showed up to these dinners.
Oh, Jesus.
And that was it. For some reason, that was just the group that did it. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll take the group to the cider mill. And so, but I also put it out on Facebook for that time. And when I did it, it was like, I think I titled it, instead of like Eat Local New York Dinner, I did like help support the cider mill, Eat Local New York Dinner. And we had like 80, 90 people show up that night for dinner. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was a great night.
It was awesome.
It was a great night. It was a great turnout. Good show of support, on all sides. So
yeah, we had our group of the 70 to 85-year-old, women and myself in the private dining room, and it was a great time.
That was early on for us. So that was in the beginning of our growth stages of trying to put that thing together organically, and that's kind of what started getting us out there. Things like that. That's what started getting it out there, because we really have never advertised.
Yeah.
Other than social media.
Yeah.
So.
And you don't even do much there, which is I honestly love. I've talked to a couple people recently about that, and it's amazing to see restaurants that are busy and successful, that are doing something unique and extremely well, which I would put the cider mill in both of those categories, and who isn't on Facebook every single day with a new cooking video or running this ad or that ad. I love seeing a local business that has a great following, does a great job, and doesn't have to market themselves too much.
It's funny when you're saying that. What it reminds me of is, our parent company is Diamond Catering, right?
Yeah.
That's what we started as.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
We were caterers first, and before, like Where Syracuse Eats and all this other stuff came out, everyone went to TripAdvisor, right? Okay. That's where all the reviews were.
Huh.
Diamond Catering was the #1 rated restaurant. We weren't a restaurant. We were a caterer, but we had so many reviews from what we did as caterers that it created a stir for restaurants here local. And wow. I think some people, I don't know who or whatever, but like somebody complained that why is a caterer at the restaurant, the #1 restaurant in Syracuse when they don't have a restaurant. So they kicked us off. They kicked all of our reviews off.
Really?
And we asked if we could at least have it for our website. But then we started talking like maybe we should open a restaurant. Maybe we should,
wow,
kind of crawl into that arena. And that's kind of what pushed us into getting the cider mill up and running. We had all that square footage, not really producing anything to pay for it.
Yeah.
And the catering was doing all that work. So that's kind of how the cider mill evolved.
But the same philosophy applies, that we never really advertised with the catering company either. We always thought that the reputation and the word of mouth was more valuable than our saying we're great.
Yeah.
We do a good job. We wanted other people to say that for us because people believe their neighbors more than what we would say about ourselves. So
it's a painful process though, because we would have nights of 15, 18, 20 covers, and with it growing organically, it kind of embarrassing. Like other restaurateurs or chef friends would come in and we have 2 or 3 tables in there, and it's like off night tonight, and like it's kind of slow. But that growth, riding it out was probably the hardest part. You know what I mean? Getting it to that point, and now it's just it's kind of a beast.
But also at the very, very beginning, before we bought the building, we didn't have a bar.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So things changed significantly. After we purchased the building, we were able to put a bar in.
Oh, that's wild.
And that was a real catalyst.
There was never a liquor license on the property.
Yeah.
So that was a big
Yeah.
That was a big hurdle.
That's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially town of Onondaga, neighborhood,
Yeah.
changes,
Right.
variants,
Yeah.
a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah. It's amazing how much, that liquor license and the ability to have, beer, wine, cocktails affects business for a restaurant. I mean, obviously margins in those categories, but there's so many people who I talk to who have opened a restaurant and they're, kind of successful, but once they get that liquor license, it's night and day for them.
It definitely gives you that margin. It gives you some room, you know what I mean? Especially, right now, my God, with food costs and the way everything is, not having that extra piece, I don't know how someone operates without it,
Yeah.
They say we did BYO for a while, which apparently is illegal, right?
Oh, really?
That's what but people still do it. Like,
Yeah.
you can walk into our restaurant now with your own bottle. We charge you a corking fee,
Yeah.
but I think there's some places that still do BYO, but I don't know how you cover your margins on food costs. A case of chicken that was $40 is now 80, 90.
Yeah,
So it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. It's what are the reasons that you get from vendors for the extreme rise in food cost?
Labor,
Yeah, this
driver shortages,
the
processing.
supply chain, the labor shortages.
Yeah. The typical things everybody's
Yeah,
saying.
we say it all the time. Like, man, if we had any of that wiggle room for error,
Yeah.
like, we can't make the mistakes with people that come in or.
Yeah, we haven't been able to, well, not able to, we haven't changed anything about our promises, our production,
Yeah.
what we deliver,
Right.
but everything on the receiving end for us has changed.
Gone through the roof,
You know?
man. Food cost is ridiculous.
How long have you been in the restaurant industry, food service industry?
20 plus years now, right?
We started, as a hobby when we first got married, which was more than 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was true love for us, honestly, for what we do. For me, wanting to cook, Teresa having this great ability for front of the house and creativity and painting a picture for something. We cut our teeth on like weddings, doing really beautiful weddings, and it's just something that always elevated our emotion to get into, to make something, a perfect experience for somebody. And it evolved, man, and we stayed with it. We had times where we talked about doing other things or walking away, but we survived, I guess. We survived all that real hard time, and now it's, I guess, reaping the rewards of it. Business has been, even with COVID, I tell Bud all the time, like, we didn't lose any employees. We added some people. We didn't lose business. We did more business. So it's kind of weird for us, but I think, again, it's because we're so involved and we're so hands-on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it is amazing over the past 2 years now, year and a half, how much some businesses, some restaurants have been affected over others. And I think when things were happening, people were going to two things. They were going to the places that they just knew and trusted the most, and then they were also going to people who made it fun and accessible to support them. Kyle started doing, we were talking about Kyle before we got started. Kyle started, Danny's Steaks during the pandemic as a way to keep the machine running at Kasai, and, made it exciting and, just switch things up and, got attention to his place that people wanted to go and support. Places like yourself, people, they trust, it's like, it's their tried and true experience is the cider mill. And, especially in that part of town, I think that's really important where you're at. But, those restaurants did really, really well. There's a lot of hardship, but there's a lot of restaurants that did well, aside from rising costs and all the other issues. But they got more business during it.
Everyone said reinvent, right? Like, is that the word?
Pivot.
Pivot.
Yeah.
Pivot was the word. Pivoting. So we were pivoting like ballerinas, man. We were all over the place on to-go business, and we started delivery.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were doing that. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the story that I've heard, and it's probably that asshole sitting out there that told me the story. But Bud had told me that, you basically went to your wait staff and said, we're not doing dine-in, but if you want to do delivery, we'll do delivery and you can do it yourself. You guys can take it over.
We gave them all opportunities to make extra dollars, We paid everyone, PPP came out, right? And we used it. We paid everybody. We gave people raises. We shared it with our entire organization, therefore not losing anybody.
Yeah.
And not worrying about them collecting a stimulus or unemployment or, that type of stuff. I mean, a couple of people had to, right, for whatever their lives were, but we put everything that we got back into our family business, you know what I mean? And we treat everybody like a family.
Yeah.
We do so much for these people because we couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, right.
So, and I think that turnaround, the results of that for what we do just helped us evolve to get us to where we are today. You know what I mean? Like it's true what you're seeing with these people, with their experience there. They're in it for all the right reasons. They all make money, but they love being there, and that's huge for us.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So how long have you had the cider mill?
I think it's like 7 years.
Okay.
Because we opened without a liquor license.
Yeah.
We had a couple of years of that, which was seasonal. So the cider mill was open when catering was slowing down.
Yeah.
And then in buying the building and putting the liquor license in there, I'd say it's probably 5 solid years now of the full-on cider mill.
Yeah.
So
when you first got married and you were kind of getting into catering, was that Diamond Catering?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've had Diamond Catering that whole time.
Yeah.
Wow.
We started that in our garage.
We just, we really were just casually producing things for friends here and there. And it kind of picked up speed.
Yeah.
To the extent that someone asked us to cater for their company party at one point. And when they asked us for an invoice, we froze. Like, what are we going to put at the top of the invoice? Like, we didn't have a name.
Yeah.
So we had to come up with a company name all of a sudden.
Their tax ID number and everything that goes in it.
A business was
business
born.
check.
Some of Dan's old buddies, affectionately called him Diamond Dan through his youth. So there it was, Diamond Catering.
It's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, we did it as a kind of a side hustle. We both had other jobs, and we just did it for fun here and there. But it got to a point where our hobby was taking as much time as our full-time jobs, but the hobby was earning money, and it was fun, and so much so that it could replace our full-time jobs, and so we both jumped. We just took the leap and left our real jobs.
Yeah, I mean, how long was it from when you first started Diamond Catering to then when you made the leap to go full-time?
That's a good question. That was probably, I don't know, we probably had 8 or 9 years into it before we realized it was like we went out and found a building. Like we realized we've outgrown everything we've done, and we're getting work that was, work that we always dreamed about. Kind of like when we started, Pascal's and Karen's were the big caterers. So we would go to these like events and see that they're doing them, the Parade of Homes and the M&T, the Jazz Fest and all that stuff. So I think once we got to the point where we went after that work and then got it and then didn't let go of it, we outgrew where we were. We stumbled on the building, on the mill. And
that was 2003.
Right.
Wow.
So got into the mill. That wasn't for sale at that point, so we leased it for a number of years, and then ended up buying it.
Yeah.
So.
So that was because that was a restaurant for a while, correct?
Maury's Cider Mill it has so much history there that for 100 years. I mean, The original mill burned down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the cider mill property goes back into the 1800s.
Wow.
Before we moved in, it was vacant for a number of years and had transitioned a number of times with little restaurants that had come and gone
Yeah.
without any success. The Morris, though, were there for many decades and had, just such a following. I mean, people still come in and either say they worked for the Morey family or that they visited and were loyal
Yeah.
patrons of that business. And a lot of people recall coming to the Morey establishment and seeing an officer outside directing traffic because it was so popular.
Yeah.
So, we pay, respect to that history with some of our decor and some of the artifacts that we found in the building,
cool. Yeah.
They're huge supporters too. The family, it's a huge family. Mr. Morey, the original, Gwyn is his name. He's going to be 103.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
We did his 100th birthday party at the mill.
Yeah, this week. He turns
He is
103.
like the biggest fan and has become such a supporter. He's always given us tons of intel on the property and really, really cool for him. And it was very important for us to restore that building back to the original red that it was when they had it. Because when we got it, it was green. So we brought it back to that barn red and having him there celebrating his birthday in that building with all of his family and stuff was pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Pretty cool.
I love, love, love seeing restaurants grow and see them change. And you all have made so many significant changes, especially over the past 2 years, from building this gorgeous outdoor dining area, and then now, you purchased a home, right there at the property. It just, to me, it's amazing to see a local business that's just expanding their footprint because they're so successful.
Yeah, I think we've always had our eye on what could we do next without like I said early on before we were taping that opening something else up.
Yeah.
I mean, we took a back room in that cider mill that was an unheated garage, made it a beautiful private space. Then we expanded that patio, right? That gorgeous outdoor patio space. The house next door came up for sale. Being able to get that and secure our investment of what we've put in, but then Teresa, her mind and creativity is what's always put us out there to be a little different. She's like, let's make this an Airbnb and dining privileges at the cider mill. And then we just kept going on different avenues from it, right? And it just kind of turned into something that we feel is going to be really cool. Like maybe, like I said, some bourbon dinners over there or real fine wine dinners. And we just connected the two properties with a beautiful set of stairs. So it's going to be cool.
What's your inspiration for coming, are you sitting there and it just kind of comes to you one day of thinking like, hey, maybe we should get the house and do this with it?
Well, as soon as we found out that the property was for sale, there was no for sale sign. We learned from a friend that it was listed at about 4 o'clock when we were setting up for the Everson event, a dinner for 400 people, like multi-course plated dinner. So it was about 4 o'clock. We're unloading the trucks, and we learned the house was for sale, and we were putting the offer in at 10 o'clock the next morning. There was no question we had to have it because we do want to expand that footprint and build on what we've got there at the mill. But as far as the use, we couldn't imagine just, renting it out or, just having it be occupied. It had to be a special purpose. So an Airbnb, but with that, let's do a big chill weekend. Let's have a couple couples come in and give them some great dinner and, wine experience.
Yeah.
Or let's do a Valentine's meal for two and bring them room service. How much fun we can have with our culinary offerings
Yeah.
right next door.
Yeah, that's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, nobody's really doing that. So, I mean, there's not much of that around. And we have the house behind the mill too. We have a caretaker that for the property that lives in that now. But I mean, eventually that would be nice to have that as another option, because like when graduation weekend, parents weekend,
Oh, yeah.
it's mobbed for stuff. The restaurant's packed. I mean, if they could stay on property. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
another revenue stream.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it is that, like, I guess that concept kind of is popping up. It's more of an experience with a lot of these restaurants. I think of Strigo on Baldwinsville is kind of doing that. I mean, it's a winery, you know, and, you know, their wine tasting, you know, room out there, but they built a house up at the front that they rent out for Airbnbs, you know, and yeah, it's just really cool to see unique things coming to Syracuse, and to see something like this that is so close to Syracuse that you're expanding, you know.
Yeah.
It's not 45 minutes away out in the Finger Lakes or anything like that, or, you know.
Even though you can drive up Fay Road and drive right by our place, because it's so weird the way our building is.
Yeah.
That building was built before everything around the
Oh.
neighbor. You know, the neighbors
Yeah.
who complained when we were going for our variances and stuff behind us, that we're like, your house is 40 years old. This is 200. You know what I mean? This was here. This was farmland. You know, you built your house around this place. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool that we are very unique to where we are.
Yeah. Is there a side of the business that you like more? Do you like more the restaurant or more the catering?
I mean, for me, catering is where my heart is. I'm always just, you know, we throw ourselves into a cater, and the challenge of like something, the harder it is, the more technical, that's what drives us, right? And then also, to be honest, the revenue is, you know, I mean, the catering company paid all the bills for all the years. If we didn't have the catering company, the cider mill wouldn't be open, because we funded it for 6 years,
Yeah,
5
to
years,
carry it for a
opening
long
it up.
time.
You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
cider mill wasn't generating enough revenue to pay for anything. You know,
Yeah.
couldn't pay for its own liquor license. So, I mean, now that's standing on its own, which is tremendous. But I think the catering side
They're
of it.
very different, but
They are.
there's this adrenaline that they each provide that's like just so charging. It's so
Yeah.
so fun.
I could not imagine catering on the scale that you do. I mean, I can't even begin to wrap my head around that.
I think that's the evolution of who we are, right? I mean, we started this thing. We knew we could put a product out and give some service. And I was saying it earlier when we weren't taping, like there's so much that we learned from when we started doing these high-end caters, or even back then, which wasn't really a high-end cater. But we always took on the challenge. A big caterer in Binghamton told us 30 years ago, book it and figure it out. And we've said that 100,000 times to each other. You know, somebody would come in with this request or something, or want something, and we're like, book it, let's book it, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure out what we have to do. And then that's just kind of evolved into really who we are as a company. And we surround ourselves with great people. I mean,
But once we did Gander, there's no number we, you know, thought was too challenging.
yeah, 10,000 people in another country was without the internet, right? We didn't have the sources that we have today for networking. If we could network that event today, we could do it with our eyes closed.
Wait, what event is this?
Gratitude for Gander. We went to Gander, Newfoundland, and we fed the entire town of Gander for thanking them for their hospitality on 9/11 when they,
So,
yeah, it was,
so they when the airports were closed
Yeah.
in America on 9/11, planes were diverted to Gander, Newfoundland. They had a huge airport there. And we found out about it, you know, a year after it happened.
Yeah.
And we didn't feel like they had received proper thanks, because it was very quiet. Like
it
there
was
wasn't a lot
remarkable
of
what they did.
yeah, there wasn't a lot of press about that. So
Yeah.
Dan said, "Geez, somebody should throw those people a party." well, we did. We opened an invitation to the whole town and surrounding communities, which was 10,000.
Was it just, I mean, did you call like the U.S. government and say?
We called
We got a very nice letter from George Bush's
It's my greatest
office
rejection letter ever.
saying, thanks, but we're not going to help you.
It's framed in my office, and it's on the nicest paper.
We had some really great volunteers, and we took a bus to Toronto and 12 planes, a train, and
Yeah.
3 automobiles to get there.
Wow.
25
And
volunteers with us. And
we had some donations. It's a very long, complicated story, but when we did that and accomplished it,
we felt like there wasn't anything we couldn't
the
do.
sky was the limit.
Wow.
And we had no business taking on such an endeavor at our stage. That was
our 12th wedding
2003.
anniversary. And we've been married 30 years.
We were just getting started, really. So we had no business taking on such a feat. But once we did it, then we felt like we could do anything.
Wow.
So
it was life-changing.
it was really the catalyst for
That was the life changer. That was the one question you had to ask. That was the game changer when we did that. And it's funny because we came back from that, and I don't know if you remember Lopez Lemong. You remember him, the Lost Boys running and ended up carrying the flag for the Olympics.
Yeah.
They contacted us, and we ended up feeding 2,500 like a week later.
Wow.
In Tully. So like we went from
to send his parents to China.
Yeah. Wow.
So
to
we went
watch.
from 10,000 people coming back to feeding 2,500, and we're like, all right, we can do this.
I completely forgot about this story until you were just talking about that. But my sister, who's a traveling minister of all things, used to take these yearly mission trips to Grenada. And they would go there and they'd be there for like a week or two. She'd bring a team of people with her. And my brother Gabe was actually a missionary in Grenada for 2 years right out of high school. And, there was obviously like the 5-minute conflict in Grenada and I think the 90s. But there were all of these temporary runways built all along the island, and like and Grenada's a tiny island, but built on the opposite side of the island away from St. George's, which is, the capital and the airport. And to this day, there's still like deserted, it looks like something out of a movie, half of a, airplane, like a Cuban airplane on this runway that's all destroyed and has vines and, trees and all this stuff growing out of it. And one of the first years that my sister went down there, they decided to throw what they called a love feast for like the island. And I think they had like 500 or 1,000 people there, but they were like, we're just going to do a chicken barbecue out here on this runway that used to be occupied, like right off to the side was this old airplane. And they had music and they just cooked all this food. And, at first like 1 or 2 people came out and then like the whole, town started coming out to it. But, they had to like go around and try and figure out how to get all these chickens, in Grenada of all places.
That's incredible.
Yeah, to do this.
That's challenging in itself right there.
Yeah. It's amazing, people in the restaurant industry especially know how to get stuff done. If there, think of like the story we were just talking about off camera, Kyle. Granted, he's not feeding 10,000 people, but he's out of food. He's sold out twice. He's trying to figure out how to get it, and through his rep, and then you're able to go and help him. It's amazing what restaurant owners can get done when they need to get something done.
Well, off topic of the direction we were talking about, that guy right there has changed a whole lot for our industry and for who he is and what he does. And we've had this conversation very sincerely. Bud bringing this group of us together. The threads we have going are incredible.
Yeah.
Never were local restaurants sharing information and important things, some personal data, things that, you may keep in your own stable.
Right.
They're now being used on a daily for all of us. And we all have become like this unity. It's been tremendous, man.
Yeah.
I applaud him for that because it's something that's been tremendous for our industry locally.
Yeah. The group text that Bud has, are phenomenal, and the everyone coming together to help each other out during this pandemic in our industry is absolutely just astounding. We've done the marketing for Baldwinsville Dining Weeks. This will be the 4th year doing it, and I was astounded from year one. Baldwinsville, for some reason, has this amazing food scene. I mean, and not just amazing in terms of like the diversity, but the amount of restaurants that exist, but the business that they all get. I've never seen anything like it. And this tiny, small village. And they're all working together. They all support one another. I've never seen one of them talk bad about another restaurant, even though they're neighbors and they're pulling the exact same demographic.
Yeah. That's big.
Yeah, it's really amazing. In an industry where you would expect more competition and more trying to go after one another, it's the opposite. You know?
We did that as caterers. We became very good friends with Karen, rest in peace. She was a great lady and somebody that I really admired for the work that she did and the amount of really high-end stuff that she was doing. We would share with her, and I did the same thing with Carnegie while they were still kind of doing that same amount of work, where if we had a client that was talking to all of us, then we shared some information. I'd give Karen my budget numbers, like where we were. I didn't, because I know how hard it is. I don't want to leave something on the table.
All right.
And we always say, well, we're not the cheapest game in town, but I didn't want to give it away, but I didn't want, if it went somewhere else, I didn't want them to not have the opportunity to make what they should make on it. So we've been doing that from the catering side. Now that the restaurant side groups are together, it's a tremendous bit of unity that Bud's put together. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
Speaking of not the cheapest game in town, I've worked for the cheapest game in town. Tiffany's Catering, do you remember that?
Oh my God.
Howard.
This is Howard, right? Oh my God.
You know Howard?
Somewhere?
Tiffany's Catering.
Tiffany's.
Back in the day?
Tiffany's?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, man. Oh, I don't know what it is. Benjamin. Howard Benjamin.
That dude.
Yeah. Something else, right?
Oh my God.
I was 19 years old. My dad was helping him out by cooking for a couple weddings. And I was probably 18 years old. And that summer after high school, I was cooking third shift at Denny's on West Genesee Street.
Oh my God.
To save up enough money to move out and go to school. And I picked up like a couple serving gigs at these weddings. And one of them was at Lourdes Camp. And really nice wedding. Well, I shouldn't say that, they hired Tiffany's, but it was, it looked like a nice wedding. And I was there just to kind of do whatever, but I wound up being like the butler, so to speak, for the wedding party. Oh. It was a big wedding party.
Yeah.
And my sole job was just to make sure that they all had a drink in their hands whenever they wanted one. And that was my true to a catering business, is one of the bridesmaids got hammered and was trying to kiss me at the end of the night. The groomsmen were trying to sneak me shots of Jägermeister throughout the entire time. At 18 years old, running around Lourdes Camp.
Funny.
In a bow tie, cheap bow tie and cheap dress shirt.
Pleated shirt, probably.
Howard had some traction, man. He had the name Tiffany's, which was good.
Yeah.
And then he had a lot of reviews that were I don't even remember what platform they were on, but I remember he had so many horrible reviews, and I kept wondering how does he keep getting work, But I guess he hired like salespeople to like cold call businesses, and then he'd burn the bridge and then never get the thing again,
The book of business that he had alone of like past, just contacts.
Yeah.
And I mean that alone, when he was trying to sell it, I remember my dad was helping him trying to sell that business, and I was like, what? Like, who on earth would ever buy that building? Or and he was like, it's his contacts. It's that book of information he has is worth so much money.
But he's
just
burned so many of those bridges in that contact list. That's why I don't know what that's worth.
Yeah, that was. There's something to be said for the down and scrappy catering business. That's a whole world in and of itself, man.
Yeah. We're talking about Karen. Karen came to us, I don't even know how many years ago. When she wanted out, she wanted us to buy her business. She saw us growing and starting to take more and more, and she came in and we signed a NDA and disclosed some figures and stuff. But we were like, why do we need to buy her business? You know what I mean? We're already taking that work.
Yeah.
And she wanted an avenue out, which just didn't fit in at that time.
That's a tough thing that I'm sure many business owners don't have, but especially restaurant owners, and that's an exit plan. And I've always wanted to do a series on how to close a restaurant, because so many get into it, they get into it with a dream, they get in it, they're passionate about it, but they don't know how to get out of it successfully, and a lot of them just kind of close up shop, and I was talking about it with Eric Devendorf earlier, and that is, there's so much focus and attention on how to get from nothing to something. How do you be the underdog, right? How do you make your $1 million? How do you, and there's so little training and education on what to do once you actually hit that goal, once you attain that level or make that money or whatever the case is. And I've always felt like it's the same way on how to get out of a restaurant,
We talk about that, like, what are we going to do? Like, Liv, our oldest, is our general manager in the restaurant. There isn't anyone that's going to step in and take our catering roles, because our catering company is who we are as individuals and what we create from the culinary aspect and from the experience aspect. I don't know if you can train that. I don't know. I don't even know if it's tangible that we could sell it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have a whole lot of tangible things. We have an amazing building, amazing commissary with hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment that are worth something, but our brand, our goodwill, we might be able to peddle it because we have a lot of work, but I don't know if we could, It's the restaurant we could turn that over, at some point.
So what was it like getting the call from Ann Burrell that you were considered or getting the job for that wedding?
She fielded that call. She can tell you that one, right? When Megan...
We were asked to put a proposal together. It was pretty much a blank canvas. We really didn't know what to present or how. Just send her something.
Italian dinner.
We knew she wanted to see an Italian menu, but not anything to do with a red sauce, marinara. And that was the criteria.
Yeah.
So take the request from a superstar chef who her first executive chef job was in Tuscany. So she's working in Italy, she's making pastas every day and produce an Italian wedding menu for her.
Yeah.
Like that one took us a month to write that. But an example,
29 days of pacing and then 1 day of writing.
put this menu together, but the difference from who we are, there was two caterers that they were talking to locally, us and Luke from Pure, Luke, who does a great job. We've done events with Luke, he's a great guy. Whatever Luke sent out, which we don't know, I'm sure went out a certain way, but what she sent out to Ann Burrell was this incredibly beautiful album that you opened up that had a story behind it and was packaged with Italian chocolates and coffee. And so it was an experience when you opened that. So I think she was definitely impressed with that to say, okay, let's do a tasting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then we had to make pasta dough for a pasta chef, which is that shit's intimidating.
I bet.
That stuff, I don't care. I mean, I would like to feel like I can cook with anybody, but when you're dealing with celebrity, it was another level of anxiety. You know what I mean? I thought she was going to be tough. I thought she was going to be bitchy, just based on her personality she was super sweet, really, really nice. Really nice, and we absolutely crushed the tasting. In the middle of dinner service on a Friday or Saturday night, full restaurant, and we did 5 courses for her in the back room.
Wow.
So it was.
We did two separate tastings for her.
That's amazing.
But she was great. She she had comments
Yeah.
about what she was experiencing, but not critiques. She said, "I love the frizzled Brussels sprouts. I'd love a little bit more of them. Great idea with the pumpkin seed oil.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a little bit more of that," or some, things like that. But there wasn't anything negative. She,
Yeah.
she was very positive.
That has to be it's like winning the ultimate cooking competition, right? Like my wife right now is obsessed with Master Chef, and we've all watched Chopped and Beat Bobby Flay, all these different cooking shows out there where restaurants are submitting to this panel of judges. But I mean, you all.
She brought a panel of judges. She had an Iron Chef sitting there tasting it. My bar manager was sitting right across from Gornicelli there, and she's an Iron Chef, and every dish that was put out, he said her fork tines went in it.
Watching
And
her
she's like,
expressions.
like tasting. I'm like, you know what, man, just enjoy it's not a cooking show.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it. And the menu was Anne's, was Anne Burrell's. I
Yeah.
mean, she essentially, the menu created was what we sat down and scratched out, but it was what she wanted. It wasn't anything that we wrote. It wasn't what we originally presented to her, but that's what she wanted. We just had to produce it.
It's amazing the impact that something like that, I think, probably untold now, but will have an effect on Syracuse for a while for our area. And that is just, she was on the Rachel Ray show calling you guys out and
That was
talking about how
huge.
amazing it was.
That was huge.
And, Syracuse is, I'm sure, listen, there's decades and decades and decades of amazing food long before I ever thought to think about it. But in the 6 years I've been doing this, to see how much our local food scene has grown and expanded, not just from the options that are available to people, but the quality of restaurants, the quality of food that's being put out, and the attention that Syracuse is getting based on our locally owned restaurants. It's just amazing. And that's plays such a big role in the attention that our city gets, from what you've done.
With you more,
Yeah.
sure.
Well, Dan and Teresa, thank you so much for coming down and being on the show.
Thank
It was
you.
fun, man. We didn't know what to expect. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate being invited to this, especially with a group of others that you're talking to. It's an honor for us, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.